Hello everyone, my name's Aleco, and I'm here today with TerrenceM from Gale Force Esports. How you doing, Terrence?
Hey, what's up, everyone? Doing good.
Awesome. We have a very cool play that Terrence picked out from a recent ladder session where he was on stream. You're playing a Cubelock deck. How do you feel about the Cubelock deck?
I feel like Cubelock is extremely strong when it goes off. Like you can just have either a bunch of Void Lords or Doom Guards, and they come out very early with the possessed lackey. So it just feels like a strong deck.
Yeah, definitely. Personally, I feel like it's one of the more fun and challenging decks on the ladder, which is why I like to play it. Even if I'm not getting as much bang out of it as pro players like yourself, I definitely have a lot of fun working through some of the complicated lines.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to see here on your turn 6 on the ladder. Do you want to set up the situation for us? What have you seen so far in this game, and how do we get to this board state?
So on the previous turn, he played a Doomsayer, and I was able to play my possessed lackey into it so that I can get this Voidwalker out. So at that point, when you see the Doomsayer and then they just coin out the Rin, you know that's a control warlock, so you kind of get to change your game plan and don't have to guess whether they're a control or cube warlock at that point.
Okay, so now that we're on your turn 6 and we see the Rin, we're sure that they're on control warlock. What cards do you have in hand? What plays are you capable of making this turn?
So in hand, I have 2 Doom Guards, 2 Defiles, 2 Dark Packs, a Spellstone that's been upgraded, a Void Lord, a Prince Taldaram, and a Carnivorous Cube.
So, what's the move?
Quickly. I wonder.
So the play I ended up going with, giving a lot of thought to them being a control warlock, was I decided to copy their Rin and use the Dark Pact so that I can guarantee that I get the seals and he can't Spellbreaker, and then kind of just commit to the game plan of playing the seals as fast as possible and destroying his deck.
All right, so before we jump into why you thought that the Prince Taldaram line and then Dark Pacting it on top of that was the best play in this situation, why don't we take a look at some of the alternative lines that you could have gone with and why you don't prefer those quite as much. So let's start with what I think probably the most obvious line is, and what I would expect most players at home would have gone for here if they didn't go for the line you chose, which was cubing the Void Lord after making an attack and then using Dark Pact on the cube.
Yeah, so you can go with that line. I kind of felt like it just isn't as much pressure as you would think it is, because you get 2 Void Lords, which by themselves, it's 2/3/9, so it's a reasonable amount of pressure, but it is a control warlock, so they have things like Siphon Soul to stop the pressure, and then they can just have AoE for the remaining Void Walkers in the following turn, so I didn't think it was enough pressure. And the other options are just killing the Rin with the Spellstone, and that really didn't stand out to me either. So I felt I saw the Prince Taldaram line reasonably late, but I thought that was the best line, and just commit to trying to burn their deck.
So would you generally peg the cube in this matchup to be a source of pressure more than a source of value? Because there's a lot of matchups, particularly against aggro decks with Cubelock, where I feel like you really just want to be getting as much value as possible just to kind of get on the board. But against control decks, are you trying to use these as more of a combo piece or an aggro tool?
Yeah, I think against control decks you want to use it as more just to have pressure and kind of combo aggro tool. So in these matchups, a lot of Void Lords get played. They play both N'Zoth and Gul'dan, so, and then they have Stonehills as well for access to even more. So they can play so many Void Lords in the game, and then actually getting through them in the end is gets pretty hard. So I think having the plan of just going with the Rin and speeding up the game really benefits me a lot, because the cubes can then be used for pressure, and then he'll have just less resources total.
What's nice about this line where you go Prince Taldaram and then into Dark Pact immediately is that you can guarantee that you're ahead on the race to Azari.
Hmm.
You're immediately getting that in hand right now, which gives you the opportunity to play it next turn, whereas your opponent would have to also have something like a Dark Pact next turn, or a way to kill their own Rin to be able to be along that same path as you. Why are you at this point more confident that committing to the Azari plan and getting out all those seals is going to be a better way to win this game instead of trying to either get value off of cubes or do some sort of cube-oriented combo? Is there something that makes you want to plant a flag in this strategy right now?
Mainly, it's just if they get to start going off with their in, like I don't have that much. Like you don't really get to pressure that much if you don't have the legendary weapon to be able to like get the Doom Guards out like freely, pretty much, and then you're able to like cube them and pressure that way. Like I don't have a specific way to pressure in the hand currently, which is why I decided to commit to the burn plan, like just milling his deck with the Zari plan.
So once you've committed to this line, is the rest of the game like kind of mapped out for you? Are you unless you're facing down like some kind of like extreme surprise lethal pressure from them? Are you just going to be? Are you committing right now to basically playing a seal every turn?
Yeah, like the whole thing is you don't specifically commit to like I'm playing a seal like every single turn. Like the actual clock where you can get the Zari down is what matters, not just oh I'm playing a seal every turn because like
So
yeah
the key takeaway is that you want to be ahead of your opponent in the Azari race, not necessarily
yeah
you're trying to commit to like a specific chunk of turns there, because that way you're just going to get ahead of them in fatigue, and that will spiral out of control as the game goes long.
yeah.
So why don't we talk now a little more generally about kind of what you did this turn, which was planting a flag in a strategy and committing to something based on what you see out of your deck and your opponent's deck. Can you just kind of walk us through the parts of the formula that are in your head that lead you to making these kinds of decisions, not necessarily in the context of this game, but in a more general sense?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's very important to have just a good knowledge of what your deck's trying to do. Like some decks are very linear, and you're not always playing like the game exactly the same way, but you're committed to like some sort of general plan. Like Jade Druid against Control, you just want to like draw and then like outvalue everything that they have by playing a bunch of big green men. And I think it's just important to actually look at the cards in your hand and what your opponent's like capable of doing, because like with different hands there's different like ways to play it. Like you have to realize when to like actually go for pressure and realize when you can kind of run them out of resources. I think would be like the main two different ways of playing.
So I would imagine that with a deck like Cubelock, which has a lot of variability to it, that you're kind of given the ability to pivot from maybe more of the aggro role to the control role, or vice versa, depending on the matchup, or even to like more of like a combo role, where if you feel like your opponent just is going to be able to either outvalue you or outpressure you, you can try to set up a situation where you just try to out-combo your opponent and kind of kill them in one turn. What sort of thought process do you use for with a deck like Cubelock, which is pretty dynamic, for determining which of those many different strategies that you're going to commit to?
Yeah, I think with Cubelock it does come down to draws. Like some draws are very like Void Lord focused. The version of Cubelock I was playing also has Mountain Giants, so you do also have that option of like going aggro and hitting them with idiots. I think it does come down to the hand. Like for example, in the hand I have this game, the double Doom Guard already, and I don't really have access to the weapon yet. So like just playing out the Doom Guard isn't really safe against another Warlock because they can always just Siphon Soul it, and then you kind of just lost 3 cards and didn't really get much out of it. So you just have to realize like whether the Void Lords and the Doom Guards are like your two options for play in the Cubelock. You either like make a bunch of Void Lords and like kind of run them out. They just can't get through all of your taunts, and then you have Gul'dan as well. Or if they're a deck that can like get through the Void Lords and just outlast the Void Lords and the Gul'dan, then you have to play the Doom Guards and start hitting them in the face and pressuring them.
Right on. So I think that'll just about do it. So huge thanks, Terrence, for coming on this show. Is there anything you wanted to shout out before I let you go?
Not really, just a shout out to Gale Force for having me on their team and giving me the opportunity to play an event and do Hearthstone full time. And just really excited to get the 2018 season started and start competing again.
All right, well, best of luck. Thanks a ton, Terrence.
Thank you for having me.